go through a reincarnation cycle, but the cosmos itself goes through well, I guess you could call it a reincarnation cycle, right? Birth, death, and rebirth. Now, we had some fun last week talking about the Big Bang Theory, didn't we? Not the TV show, but the scientific theory, right? And if you look at it, it reads a lot like a creation story, does it not? Yeah, certainly not usually considered to be religious, but it strikes me as a myth nonetheless, a story that we tell ourselves to explain to ourselves where we came from, who we are, where we're going. But again, does the Big Bang happen only once? I was taught that it did. Just once, right? You get the Big Bang. Everything in the universe is flying outward at a high rate of speed. There's that spinning again, right? But it reaches a certain point, and this is only one theory among many, but still, it reaches a certain point where it can't stretch anymore. And then it begins to shrink and shrink and shrink over the millennia until eventually you get, let's call it the Big Crunch. Big Bang, Big Crunch, right? One-shot deal. Just like the way that we have constructed our own lives, our understanding of our own lives in the West is we get one life. Isn't that what you were taught? Is it just me? Did I get gypped? No, one life. That's it, man. No pressure. You got to get it right. You got one shot. And if you don't, woe be unto you, right? Oh. Yeah, when you hear that as a 6-year-old, whew. But there are scientists now who are beginning to argue that the Big Bang hasn't happened only once. That you get the Big Bang, a zillion years later you get the Big Crunch, but then bang, crunch, bang, crunch, bang, crunch. Like the universe wasn't large enough already, right? Now we get to imagine even more in a repetitive cycle. Were these ancient Hindu thinkers perhaps onto something? Is it a similar metaphor? I mean, were they just gazing at their navels? Because oftentimes these ancient religious people get dismissed, right? Not really talking about the real world. But I wonder, did they not have some clues? I mean, some of these people were astrologers. They understood the stars. They knew a great deal about the universe. And honestly, I have heard Hindus say that Hinduism is not a religion. It is a science. It is a science. It is the science of the soul, if you will. Right? And yes, you all over there in the West are really good with your science about studying material, right? The material universe. You're making great progress. But when it comes to matters of the soul, which you might translate into the psychology of the individual human being, we still have a ways to go on that, right? We struggle here in the West for all of our goods, right? All our technological progress, shall we say. Still, that little smartphone that has so connected us, right? In so many different ways. Yes and no, right? Some good points, maybe some not so good. I mean, it's a great little tool, right? And I spend time on social media, right? I'm a fan of the Facebooks, if you will, right? Twitter, that's a whole other thing. I don't tweet because tweeting is for the birds, okay? I'm just saying. 144 144 is all you get? Oh, I'm not a short story writer. I'm a novelist. Forget about it, right? Oh, I'll stick with email, at least for the time being. But yes, it has connected us in these little ways, right? I've got, how many Facebook friends do you have? Okay. Friends, really? That's great, right? Collect them like beads, right? Like baseball cards. How many of those friends are going to drive 30 minutes at 3 o'clock in the morning to help you change a tire on your car? That's a friend. It's not someone who likes your stuff, right? That's a friend. And again, I don't mean to demean it, but I see the effects that it has. I see the effects even on myself. I wonder if the more we are connected through our technology in these small, somewhat shallow ways, right? Because most of the conversations I overhear, and believe me, I'm not a lurker, okay? Not creepy old guy, but so many of the phone conversations that I overhear are somewhere along the lines of, where are you and what are you doing? It's the first thing, where are you? Suddenly we become really fascinated with location. Maybe it's GPS, I don't know. But where are you and what are you doing, right? But where are those lengthier conversations? And where is that human connection, right? Have you had a chance to Skype? You know what I'm talking about? Where you're looking at a laptop. It's usually a laptop, right? And there's that, how did they get that person in that box? Chaplain Fuller, the first time I ever saw you, you were inside a box, right? You were in a laptop. I'm like, okay, magic, smoke and mirrors. And yes, again, it connects us with people who are far away, whose faces we might not see. But the time we spend with our technology increasingly, I fear that it steals from us those moments of real humanity between two people, right? Where you have time to sit and actually move beyond those pregnant pauses. I mean, one of the signs that you are with someone who is or soon will be a friend, it's when you have that first quiet moment that could be awkward, but it isn't, right? That it's okay for you just to sit with each other or stand with each other, right? I mean, that is a moment of humanity. It's a silent one, but again, it's not the declarative, it's not the imperative. It might actually become the interrogative, right? A moment to ponder together what it might mean to be alive. And some of you have been in truly long-term relationships, and you know what I'm talking about. There's a comfort level that can come, right? That it's okay just to be together, not have to do something, not have to say something, right? So, thus endeth the sermon on technology, okay? It's actually kind of awesome in many ways. Anyway. Oh boy. 18 minutes. All right, we're going to give it a shot. Let's talk about Shiva for a little bit. Let's talk about Shiva. And then we'll talk about Vishnu. Brahma we'll leave for another time, perhaps another lifetime, right? Let's talk about Shiva, and then we'll talk about Vishnu. Both in and of themselves, but also I think as representative somewhat of Indian culture, at least as it has been understood historically, right? That it is a mixture of cultures. Well, like every culture really, but certainly here, because we're talking hundreds of millions. Doesn't India have now over 1 billion people? Am I right about that? 1 billion. 1 billion people, right? That makes even 330 million seem like a small number, doesn't it? Shiva is fascinating. For one thing, he is a study in contrast. He is understood as the god of fertility, but also of asceticism, self-denial, right? Both a god of creation, but also a god of destruction. We've already seen him play the role of destroyer in the Smṛti, right? A mixture, if you will, of what is usually understood to be good and evil. Oftentimes, Shiva is depicted as he's dancing, He's a dancing god, right? Sometimes you'll see him dancing in a circle of fire, right? So he's going to make it big in Vegas, I'm thinking, right? Circle of fire. He's the dancing god. And here, let's go back to those concentric circles again for a moment. It is said, that this is a different creation narrative, okay, from the Smṛti, that Shiva himself plays all three roles of creator, maintainer, and destroyer. And the way that he does it is he gets up to dance. And because, as you and I now know, we are all part of the divine, right? We are all part of Shiva. We all dance with Shiva. In fact, we are Shiva's dance. Did you know that the things that you did today were actually a part of Shiva's dance? You're welcome. Right? We dance with Shiva. And as long as Shiva dances, that's the universe. That's the cosmos having its existence for however long it lasts. Right? Again, there's that depiction of the universe as a gigantic being, an anthropomorphized being, a being that looks a lot like humans, right? And as long as he dances, the universe flourishes, right? But what happens when you dance? Well, it happens a lot more quickly for me now than it did back in the day. You get tired, don't you? Yeah, and eventually you're going to go sit down, right? When you stop dancing, well, when that happens to Shiva, when he eventually stops dancing, the universe lapses into its original chaos, right? It goes away. But then, I don't know, did he step to the bar and have a beer and get his second wind? Okay, just work with me. I'm trying to come up with a metaphor here, right? He gets back on the dance floor. Right? It goes at it again, and there it is, the universe. Whew, back again, right? And there's another creation, destruction myth, if you will, that is somewhat similar. Shiva is also understood to be something of a meditating god. And again, we've talked about how meditation is so important, particularly in the Eastern religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Important in the Western religions too, but not nearly as much so. What is the chief ritual, would you say, in the Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, Islam? Prayer, right? Again, you think of the conversation between those two beings. Well, in the East, yes, there are prayers to the gods and goddesses, but meditation is hugely important. For one thing, you're not looking for the divine out there. Where's the divine? At the very center of your being, right? So to meditate, really, it's this inward journey, this inward search for the divine. And Shiva, again, is known as a meditating god. And so when Shiva sits down to meditate, unless he's doing standing meditation, right? That is when the universe comes into being. You and I are the meditation of Shiva. We're just a thought, right? We're just a thought. This is another, how do I even say it? It's another part of this construction of reality, that this world isn't real. It's illusory. And the very thing that keeps us here, that keeps us from escaping to utter bliss, right, is that we are so attached to the world. We take it so seriously, and we believe that it is really real. Now, again, we are meaning-making beings. We need meaning. We need order just to, so that the world is not a completely crazy place. And so what do? We construct. We construct our lives. We construct our relationships, right? A social understanding, an understanding of the cosmos. I mean, this very institution is about both helping us understand how to construct a world, but also the fact that this world is constructed. And if it has been constructed the way that it is, then there are some things about it that can be changed, that can be deconstructed and reconstructed. Racism comes to mind. Sexism comes to mind, right? Those kinds of things. They have been